Hi, everybody. I'm Jen Johnson, and you are watching Thought by Thought Healing, where I talk about chronic pain, chronic symptoms, chronic fatigue, all the things, and why, because of brain science and the gospel, I believe that we can recover from these illnesses, if you will. Today, I am excited to have Jen with me for part two of kind of debunking some terminology that's used in the mind-body community or mind-body medicine that for us kind of uh, threw us off, or we just wanted more clarity around. And especially as Christians, like, wait, do I get to partake in that? Do I believe that? What is that? Does that align with what I believe? And so
Right.
we just love to talk about these things amongst the two of us. And now we're bringing it to you guys. So, yeah, so like I said, this is part two. Jen, do you have, well, first, thanks. Yes, thanks for doing this.
Oh, sure.
Do you have a word you want to start with?
So I think meditation was one of those words that I just was really nervous about to begin.
Mhm.
Um, I think I mentioned in my first interview with you that Curable was the app that I used the most in the beginning of my healing journey.
Mhm.
And it has these meditation exercises, and I remember going through all the other options that I could go through in the app before I even would consider doing the meditations, because to me, I kind of grew up with the mentality that that was Eastern mystical religion, and I just didn't want to have take a part in that.
Yeah.
And as I did the meditations on Curable, I was like, okay, I'm just going to pray really intensely through this whole thing, and I'm just going to be a curious observer. And what I did was I wrote out, the main points of the meditation. And as I did that, I realized that it was mostly about taking the time to breathe in a really deep way. And let's just start there. Breathing was
Yeah.
something I was like, what is the point? Honestly, um, says take these deep breaths, and I don't understand how that makes a difference.
Yeah.
I did this meditation. I think it was also just taking the time to just be quiet. How often are we encouraged to just be quiet?
Never.
Right. Never. Exactly. And so as I wrote out what, the main points of the meditation is, I realized that it had so much more to do with just being in a calm state rather than it being any kind of connection to a spiritual, a different spiritual world or anything like that. What's been your experience with that?
Yeah, a similar. I remember before I even discovered the mind body connection, I was working with my physical therapist who suggested meditation, and I literally said, "We have different spiritual beliefs, and I'm not comfortable with that." Because I thought that meditation was an invitation of something spiritual beyond what I believed. And so I didn't do it. But then later on, I worked with somebody, a pain psychologist, who was not helpful, but he did introduce deep breathing to me. And he, instead of calling it a meditation, he called it deep breathing. And so I was like, oh,
Mm.
yeah, I'll try that.
Mhm.
I don't know what this is going to have to do with pain, but I'll try it. And I noticed within a week that my symptoms had reduced. And for those of you who are
Ah.
listening and not watching, I'm using kind of a hand gesture to show maybe like a 20% reduction or
Mhm.
50%
That's
enough.
considerable.
Yeah, when you're in pain, you're like, oh, wait, why do I feel slightly better today? Um,
Mhm.
and then I started digging into the science of what is happening with meditation and breathing in particular, and getting down to the vagus nerve, and that the fact that our bodies have our nervous system is divided into two, sympathetic and parasympathetic, and one is fear, anger, distress mode, and one is rest and digest and calm. And we, those of us who are in chronic pain, we're stuck over here in this fight or flight.
Right. Right.
And what that means is that our brains are stuck in this limbic system. The emotional part of your brain is cyclical. It's just operating on its own. And that breathing actually gets in there and adjusts and interrupts that cycle and gets you to, specifically with mindfulness, and that includes breathing, gets your attention into your thinking brain. And so by basically doing these breathing activities, you're doing two things. You're stopping that cyclical emotional part of your brain, and you're also activating that rest and digest. And all this is like peace that passes understanding. And
Yes. Yes.
it's there's nothing mystical, spiritual about it if you don't want it to be. I mean,
Right.
you can take anything and do what you want to with it, right? And so, similar to you, I had to kind of break through. And for me, obviously, by the mere fact that I brought up all the science, it was helpful for me to see, oh, God created me in this way. And all I'm doing is activating the rest and digest in my body by slowing down and
Right.
paying
Right.
it.
Well, and I mean, let's go back to Genesis, right? Who gave us the breath?
Yeah.
And who gave us the idea of rest?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of this stuff
Sabbath rest.
just gets down to the root of what's been given to us, what's been created, and how we get to use it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I found too, what was helpful, this was after I had done a couple where I was writing them out. I realized you can read through them, at least on Curable,
Uncurable.
through the meditation that, you can read through all the prompts that it's going to give and decide whether that's one that you want to partake in or not. But I did find, like you, that by calming my brain and my nervous system, I felt certain muscle tension release. I felt more at peace, just throughout my day. It really did make a difference.
And you've brought up Curable a couple times, and just in case there's new watchers or people that are new to this concept, if you don't have the app Curable yet, and I do not work for them, this is not a sales
Neither do
anything.
I.
But I actually, when I do work with clients, I cannot require, but I strongly encourage the use of Curable, because there are scientists, neuroscientists, doctors that have studied the mind-body connection, mind-body medicine, and they've created this app that's incredibly helpful with education, meditation,
Very
science kits.
interactive.
Yeah, rewiring the brain, just different ways to start working on specifically chronic pain. And so actually there's a 2-week free trial that you can get. And if you email me, I can actually get you a 6-week free trial, and you should take me up on it because it's really good. So that's
really made a difference for me.
Yeah. And that just the way that they use education, or the way that they articulate the brain science is helpful in a way.
And it's really, they've broken it down into simple 5 to 7 minute lessons, and they've really tried to break it down into really simple terms that anyone could understand. You don't have to be a brain scientist to understand what you're talking about, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, me too. So and as we're talking about brain science, another word that really kind of, I was like, wait, what does that really mean? Was neuroplasticity.
Ah, yes.
And this idea of rewiring the brain is really the heart of what is happening in this work, is that your brain is wired to produce pain. And if that science isn't fully grasped yet for you, Go back to some of my earlier videos and or use curable. Um,
Yes.
but your brain is producing pain on a habitual, conditioned, learned way. And it is through neural circuits like Dr. Howard Schubiner talks about. And so the neuroplasticity um, is is basically just you being the architect and adjusting how your brain is formed and changing those habits and creating new connections
Right.
that just changes everything.
I think hearing the word neuro, well, first anything with the word neuro to begin with sounded kind of strange to me, but also plastic,
Yeah.
that didn't speak to me that I can learn something. That plastic meant learning and
Mhm.
the ability to change. Um, Once I understood that, again, that was such a light bulb moment for me because it was like, well, that I can think differently. You know,
Yep.
I can create new habits. I don't have to have a habit of pain. And I don't mean that we purposely have a habit of pain, but it's what our brain does when there's a nervous system reaction. And so my go-to was pain in my shoulder or pain in my foot. But it can be so many other types of tension and other symptoms as well.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. Yes, that plasticity, the ability to change. Dan Buglio often talks about just the ability to learn something new, and like a language or a sport or I don't know, a new recipe.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe not a new recipe, but when you're learning something new, there there's this process. It takes time, but there's the plasticity where we're changing the neural connections and changing how the architecture of our brains through our thoughts, which is really cool,
Really
actually.
amazing and speaks to an intelligent designer.
Yeah,
Yes. Amazing.
yes, it's so true.
I
And
think that's been a really fun thing about learning this is just being able to see how incredibly complex and purposeful the design that God gave us was. From the very beginning, he had this idea that we needed to be able to learn. And that just it blows my mind.
yeah, absolutely. And the way we change is through thoughts and capturing our thoughts and renewing our minds and reading and listening and learning and then preaching to yourselves
Right.
truth.
Repetition. Repetition. That meditation. I mean, Joshua talks about that. The
Yeah,
talk about that, meditating on the word of the Lord. And part of that I think is what does he say about us? It's not just what we read in the Bible. Sorry, I have my Bible over here, so picking it up. But it's also what does he say about us?
yep. And then we get to claim that and our brain shapes around that, which is incredibly empowering because of how he has created us.
Right, right. Good
Um,
stuff.
yeah. Something else that we had briefly talked about was this idea of safety, and this word
Mm,
"safe" is thrown around a
hmm.
ton in
And
curable.
danger,
Mm,
safety and danger.
yeah, yes. And what is? I mean, if we're going to unpack words, you would think that we all know what safety is, and yet when we're talking about chronic pain, we are talking about the body operating in a way that it is quote unquote doesn't
Feeling
feel safe,
unsafe.
in
Right,
danger. And
right.
for you and for me both, we didn't recognize that, right?
Not at all. Mm-mm.
Yeah. And you were saying in the beginning that there was just kind of this like, well, what is that? I don't feel unsafe. Can you like unpack your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I was just thinking, you know, I guess I was thinking of safety as like, for my life, is my life in danger? And, thinking, well, I feel safe in my home. I know I can I can call somebody if I need help. And so I just couldn't understand safety in this context, but now I understand that it has more to do about with feeling at peace in a situation, rather than feeling threatened. And there would be times that I wouldn't even realize, we talked about the subconscious a little bit in our last episode. I just didn't
Mhm.
realize that I was feeling threatened. And so it didn't really, it just wasn't registering with me at first.
Yeah. When I heard that the first time, for me, it resonated. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't feel safe. And so for me, the way that I look at it, or some examples, I should say, is just like being in situations where maybe there's awkward silence. And
Mhm.
instead of my nervous system feeling calm and at ease in that, instead I go into what I'm going to call danger mode, which is the nervous system having this low level, like, oh, I have to fix this. This is awkward. This isn't, there's not rest here.
Mm,
And so that's the rest piece is the safety. It's the nervous system being comfortable in,
right.
let's say, awkwardness. So maybe safety is peace that passes understanding, or rest, or comfortable. Same
Mhm.
thing with emotional rejection, or if I used to be unable to, or have nervousness around sharing my opinion if it was different, and I
Sure.
still
Sure.
struggle with this at times, but can I find safety
Mhm.
in potential rejection, right? Like sometimes we share what we believe or think, and other people don't like it, and
Right.
is that okay with my nervous system?
Mm.
And those little things, or I think we talked about before, Nicole Sacks's like thousand cuts.
Thousand paper cuts.
Yes, that's it.
The
Um,
death of a thousand paper cuts.
there it is. Yeah. And so just that I hope that helps a little bit
Yeah,
with
definitely helps.
yeah, especially
Yeah.
for the watchers. Like I know you've got a good grasp on this of what does safety mean now, and what is danger. And sometimes we can think of those words as really big, but sometimes they're really little. They are a paper cut.
Hmm. Well, I think it's really easy to discount also, because it's like, well, I mean, those things happen so often. So how could that really, I mean, that's my life, right? And
Yeah.
I think we talked about stress a little bit, and this we could have a whole episode on for really. But this whole idea of I just when people would ask me if I was stressed, I would say, well, yeah, but isn't everybody?
Hmm.
And so it was so easy to discount that that could be actually causing me pain in my body, because I thought, well, that's a universal thing. Why should that affect me so much?
Yeah. And yet, when you look around, sorry, my mic is echoing for some reason. When we look around, everybody is in stress, and everybody has these symptoms. We don't often recognize them as mind body symptoms, but now that I look around and listen to people,
Hmm.
most of the people in my life are actually in some sort of chronic symptom of some sort. And so
Right.
yes, that chronic stress or pressure, just a little bit of pressure, does end up playing out in our nervous systems in chronic stress, chronic symptoms.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Any final words before you want to unpack before we end this one?
Um, Maybe mental health. You want to go there?
Wow, that is a big one. I mean, these things do um, relate. Chronic pain and mental health have a lot of like overlap.
And
And
I
there's a
never understood that before.
yeah.
Completely saw it as two different things. Um, and I think it's such a buzzword that it's sometimes I
Mhm.
think people just kind of roll their eyes because it's like, oh, here we go again, talking about this mental health crisis. Um, we put so much attention into taking care of our bodies, right? We think about what we are going to eat, and we decide, I'm going to take this walk because it's good for me. It's good for my body, but we don't take the same approach toward our minds and our brain, and I
Yeah.
don't understand that.
Yeah. I agree. We get so busy in life that it's the last thing we think of is to take care of ourselves. And our brain is really, our minds are like the essence of who we are. And when we don't take that time to prioritize that, well, we end up in chronic pain.
Right.
And yeah, that is a very big subject in and of itself. But I think taking care of ourselves and looking at what does that really mean, is a big part of healing. Because
Right.
what you're going to need versus what I need, what your brain is going to need attention and love and compassion towards is going to be different than what mine will be.
Right. I remember when I was working with you, you challenged me to be in the what you called the chill zone. And at first I just didn't even understand
Mm,
concept, you know. Um,
interesting. Yeah.
more that I embraced it and the more that I tried to not I tried to have space between my reaction, when something happened and my reaction, I tried to have more space. And as I did that, I realized I can be at peace even in a sticky situation, you know. And so I've adopted that into my life, that I just try to be more in a chilled state of mind. And that has made such a difference in my body as well.
Yeah. And I love that you talk about that space between the trigger or something happening and a reaction. That's a really powerful way of describing that. And just for the watchers to know, and Jen already knows this, but the difference between that chill zone and suppressing emotions is very, very important difference. We never want to suppress like deep,
Good point. Yeah,
like
I'm glad you
talking
brought
about,
that up.
yeah, and just looking into our childhood and looking at like in our adulthood and in the ways that the emotions that we have subconsciously suppressed or just developed, is different than when Jen's talking about, which is these like the milk spilt and I forgot to feed the cat and my son's late. I don't have any kids.
Right.
Whatever.
No, exactly. You're talking about everything that I deal with. Yes.
Yeah. So
Being in the passenger seat while my son is learning how to drive, you know.
yes, for sure. So yeah, okay. Well, this has been great. Again, like we said before, if you guys have any other questions, any other words that you'd like unpacked, just leave a comment and let us know and we can pop back on and talk about those. So I hope that you guys have a great week and I will see you soon. All right, bye.